Hi, and welcome to Random Fandom Chats. I'm Tandra.
I'm Dee Dee.
And this is Annabeth. And here we talk about pretty much anything and everything that's fandom related. Generally science fiction, but it could be books, comics, movies,
TV shows, comics, video games. And today we're actually talking about the character Spider-Man, or otherwise known as Peter Parker.
One of my favorite superheroes.
Probably one of mine too, although I honestly haven't read all that many of his comic books, to be honest.
Well, and I don't really read comic books. My superhero knowledge always comes from TV or regular books, not comics, because they do novelizations of them.
Novelizations of stuff.
And movies and TV, so that's where I get my superhero
whatever
knowledge.
Random facts that us comic book geeks kind of spout off sometimes.
Yeah. Unfortunately, comic books is one genre that I don't read much, but I do like some of the characters.
You like the characters, just not necessarily the source material.
But he is definitely one of my favorites.
Okay, so why is he one of your favorites?
I think it's because he's kind of a geeky guy. Peter Parker.
We like our geeks.
He's very smart and all.
He's sassy.
Yes, I was just going to say I like his wit. I like his sassiness and his wit. He's having to scramble and fight for everything he gets. You know, he's kind of poor and he has to work. To get. He
has to deal with a horrible boss.
Yeah, and he kind of has to work real hard at what he's doing, and he goes after the bad guys, and his powers are kind of I don't like spiders at all. Can't stand them.
But so funny.
But some of his powers are kind of cool and interesting, and I like that he's smart enough to come up with things like his web shooters and stuff like that. So. But he's not like some of the other heroes out there, like Iron Man, who's really, really rich, or Superman, who has pretty much every power out there in the world, or all these other people. He's I don't know. He's kind of like the common guy.
Yeah, he's a lot more real to me as a person. Because one thing that I really don't like about some superheroes is that a lot of them don't really tend to deal with just everyday normal people problems. And yeah, they're superheroes, and I get that their lives are different to an extent, but it's like they're still just people in the end. And Peter Parker, I think, really represents that a lot better than a lot of comic book characters. Like you said, he's poor, he has to scrape by, especially in a big city like New York. He lives in crummy apartments a lot of the time. He has problems with relationships with Mary Jane and all that. And so I think that really just makes him a lot more human to a lot of us.
Right. I think that's one thing, so yeah.
I also really kind of like the dynamic of his character. Like you said, he is a geek, but he's also really sassy and witty, and he talks to his villains a lot and antagonizes them and makes jokes a lot, which you don't really see that. A lot of times people really kind of cookie cutter characters, and if they are geeky, they tend to be really shy and quiet and reserved and whatnot, but not Peter Parker. He's he's pretty unique.
Yeah, even as Peter Parker, not just Spider-Man. He's kind of sassy even as Peter Parker.
He's a little bit more demure. A little bit more unassuming, a little bit more Clark Kentish, I guess.
But not a lot, though. He's, he definitely will stand up for himself, and he, will fight with his boss and whatnot. So, yeah. So that's kind of cool. Now, you've seen several Spider-Man movies and some TV shows and the cartoons that are out there. You've seen a lot of different
cartoons, yeah.
What was probably your favorite portrayal of him?
Well, I know that this is kind of an unpopular opinion, but I honestly really like the Amazing Spider-Man stuff with Andrew Garfield. That isn't to say that I don't like the Tobey Maguire trilogy. Of course, that was the first, thing that I really saw Spider-Man was coming out. But I think I like the newer stuff better in a lot of ways. And of course, now we got the newer Avengers-related stuff with Spider-Man coming out. And I'm not sure what I think of the new Spider-Man yet.
I'm not sure.
I definitely think that this new guy's a decent actor, but I'm not, I'm still just a little bit wary. I'll save my main judgments for when Spider-Man Homecoming comes out in a few months. But honestly, yeah, I really like Andrew Garfield's portrayal of him. I think that he brought a lot more of the sassiness of Spider-Man to life while also still being really geeky, because I think a lot of times portrayals either go one way or the other. Again, with the whole cookie cutter thing of characters, they either try to lean more towards him being geeky or him being more sassy and lippy and whatnot. And I think Andrew Garfield just really found a good balance between the two of them. Plus, he's really good looking, so that definitely helps, I think.
Well, I don't know. It's kind of funny. A lot of times with the movies that have been coming out, I'm like this with Batman too, I think I like the first portrayals that I see better just because that's what I get used to. That's the way I've envisioned the character. Of course, I had actually seen Spider-Man portrayed in live action way back on the 70s TV show. So I had actually seen it a long time before that, so I actually had a little different version of him in mind, but I still like the Tobey Maguire version pretty well. Even when they came out, because of course it's been a long time between what I'd seen in the 70s and what I'd seen later on.
Which that TV show is really, really hard to find. When she was telling me about this TV show, I didn't believe it existed at first because I searched for it for like ever.
Very hard to
I searched on YouTube, I searched the internet, and there was like nothing.
There are a few episodes out there on YouTube now, I believe, but
yeah, because I watched the first one, and it's okay. For
they made him a lot older. He was a grad student, so he was like 20 years old or something. I mean, he was
almost always now when a Spider-Man starts out, he's almost always in high school
or just starting college or wherever. Yeah, so it's kind of interesting to see that when they did it then, they made him that much older. And I don't think they really explored him and Mary Jane that much in that series. They might have in some of the episodes, but they also had where...
Well, I seen the first episode and they didn't mention Mary Jane at all.
Yeah, so I don't know.
Or Gwen Stacy.
So, which it's been a long time since I've seen those, so I'm not entirely certain whether they got into either one of them or not. But yeah... it's interesting how the different ones are being portrayed. Sometimes I think it's the actor interpretation. Sometimes I think it's the director's vision or
just how it's written. Stories they tend to go with.
Right, so how it goes. But I don't know. The newer one's going to be interesting to see how he does. I'm not sure what I thought of him. I saw him in the
Civil War
movie. And
we didn't really get to see enough of him. That's why I'm really saving my judgments. I'm still kind of on the fence one way or the other.
We'll see how it goes, because he could be good, he could not be good. I'm not sure yet.
One thing that I will say that I don't necessarily like about this new portrayal is I don't like how young they've made Aunt May.
Oh, yeah.
Because even though that actress isn't necessarily young, she looks like she's only in her, 30s or something. It's like, no. It's like, Aunt May needs to be more of like a grandmotherly type.
I mean, we realize to be somebody's aunt, especially when they're young, you could just be in your 30s or even early 40s.
But this is Aunt May we're talking about.
Yeah, we always envision her just being a little bit older, or at least slightly gray.
Yeah, she's a little bit too young for me. But like I said, I'm still going to save my judgments and whatnot. Now, an interesting fact that I actually just found out recently, and I'm not sure many people know about this, is that when Spider-Man very first started out in the comics, they actually made time pass in the comics as time passed in real life. So after 2 years of the comics passing, 2 years in Peter Parker's life had passed. And by 2 years of comics, he was graduating high school and went on to college. Which I actually found very interesting because there's always been a lot of weird controversy with trying to figure out how time passes in comics, is it's so many years in their world related to ours or whatnot, but that's how Marvel originally was going to make it, is they were just going to have time pass in real. And then they kind of decided, we should slow it down because we want to really get...
otherwise he's going to be 40 years old before you know it.
Right, especially since you only get 12 issues, a year.
Yeah, you're not going to get a lot of a storyline going for 1 year. Yeah, so I get that.
Yeah, so I just thought that was kind of an interesting
kind of cool. That's a little... Yeah, that's definitely cool. Well, I don't know. What about Spider-Man villains? Is there any... particular villains that you thought were...
that I really liked? I would probably say that I like Green Goblin. That's probably a kind of, cliche answer, kind of common. But I do like the Green Goblin. I kind of like how, he was the father of his best friend and whatnot. And he kind of went off the deep end and became this villain. And, I thought that was kind of an interesting take. I did like the portrayal they did of Doc Ock in the Tobey Maguire stuff. I thought that was pretty cool. I don't really know much about Doc Ock, because like I said, I just haven't really read that many Spider-Man comics. But I thought he was pretty cool in the movie. I thought,
Yeah.
Especially when you look him up in the comics, he looks like a giant nerd. It's like, no, you're wearing a horrible yellow and green outfit. Why would I be scared of you? Yes, you have these giant metal arms, but just go choose a better fashion choice, please.
That's good. I don't know. I think Green of them probably, you know, like I said, since I haven't read the comics per se, I'm not as familiar with a lot of the villains as I could be.
He has a lot of really obscure villains. Like he has one that I think is going to be the main villain in Spider-Man Homecoming, which is named the Vulture. And
Okay.
which I was like, I know nothing about that villain. I've never seen him in any Marvel comics I've read because, you know, he's primarily a Spider-Man villain and whatnot. So, I mean, there's a lot of obscure ones with him. And the Rhino, that sounds like something from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles to me. But, you know, so he has a lot more villains that are a little bit more obscure. I always kind of found it interesting because when you compare Marvel to DC, a lot of Marvel supervillains aren't usually exclusive to a superhero necessarily a lot of times they're just a villain for just the general universe. That's a lot more isolated in the DC universe, except for, I've noticed with Spider-Man, and of course things like the X-Men, where the X-Men fight other mutants, so they tend to, you know, stay with their villains. But Spider-Man is really the one that has his own exclusive groupie of, you know, villains and whatnot, because a lot of other villains, like I said, they can show up in pretty much any comic at any given time, you know, or show up in Avengers and then, you know, show up in another comic any other time. But yeah, with Spider-Man, I think a lot of his villains and whatnot are a lot more isolated, which is kind of funny considering he lives in New York and like half of the superheroes in the Marvel Universe live in New York, so it's like you think that they would cross paths a lot more.
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting little thought.
Mm-hmm.
I had seen an interview with Stan Lee at one time, and I think Spider-Man was probably one of his favorites.
I would say so too.
Based on the way he was talking about it and all, I think he was really kind of proud of Spider-Man just a little bit. I think that was one that really kind of, almost like Peter Parker was kind of his alter ego a little.
Yeah, well, and if you think about it, I mean, look at it from a writer's point of view. So you take this character, and he's just this nerdy kid who's pretty bullied at school, is kind of a nobody and whatnot. And, you know, you give him superpowers and he's special now. He's doing amazing things. He's the amazing Spider-Man. People are looking up to him and think he's awesome. And people are walking around with his t-shirts and whatnot. And so I think it's just kind of everybody's dream of, you know, you can kind of go from a nobody to somebody who's really cool. Of course, you know, people don't tend to get bitten by radioactive spiders in real life. But hey,
True,
you know,
but
it still helps you aspire to achieve things.
Yeah. Okay, I get that. Mm-hmm. Well, and I do think it's one that the kids can identify with really well, because a lot of times if they're playing any kind of superhero, Spider-Man is definitely a popular choice.
Well, and he's definitely one that can resonate with children easier, because I think a lot of times, like, of course, kids like things like Superman and Batman and whatnot, but I think a lot of times they seem more like just heroes, whereas Spider-Man can seem a lot more like them. They can, like I said, they can identify with him as a hero and as a person.
Right.
He's a lot more relatable.
Okay, well, I think we're ready to maybe see what we're going to do for next week. Mm-hmm. Emmett, you ready to pick some? No? She's kind of out of it today. I got one you need. Yep. That one? Okay. This one's back in. What do we got today? Orange, one of her favorite colors. She picks it a lot. Books. Heroes of Olympus.
Ooh.
So we're going to do a Percy Jackson one. All
Nice.
right.
I like that.
All right. Well, we'll see you next time. And remember, if you like what we do, please subscribe or hit the thumbs up and tell all your friends about us.
Don't forget to leave suggestions in the comments below if you have any ideas on what you think we should add to our box of suggestions.
Thanks. See you next time.